Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Starship Liberty and watched the last alien ship disappear into the dark space ahead. The message from the Galactic Council had been clear and cold like ice on a winter morning. Humanity was no longer welcome in their group. All human worlds would be cut off from the galaxy. No trade, no talk, no help from anyone. Dr. Lisa Campbell walked up to Jake with a datapad in her hands. Her face looked worried as she showed him the final message from the Council. The alien leader's words were still fresh in everyone's mind. He had said that humans were too wild and too dangerous to be around other space races. They would stay in their own small part of the galaxy until they learned how to act properly. Jake shook his head as he read the message again. The Council thought they were punishing humanity for being different. They did not like how humans solved problems or how they fought when they had to. The aliens wanted everyone to follow the same rules and think the same way. But humans were not like that. What the Council did not know was that humans had been getting ready for this day. Admiral Roy Fletcher had seen the signs years ago. He noticed how the other alien races looked at humans during Council meetings. They whispered behind closed doors about the human problem. So Roy had started secret projects far away from prying alien eyes. Dr. Peter Hayes worked at one of these hidden places near the edge of human space. His team had been building something special for many years. They called it Project Genesis. When Peter got the news about the Council's decision, he smiled. It was time to show what humans could really do when they worked together. The communication networks that connected all human worlds went quiet. No more messages from alien friends. No more trade deals bringing exotic goods from distant stars. The galaxy had turned its back on humanity. Most humans felt scared at first. They had grown used to being part of something bigger than themselves. But Jake knew better. He had served in the human fleet for 20 years. He had seen what humans could do when they were pushed into a corner. They did not give up. They did not cry. They got creative and they got tough. On Earth, the leaders held emergency meetings. Some wanted to beg the Council to change their minds. Others wanted to fight back right away. But the smart ones, like Admiral Fletcher, had a different plan. They would use this time to grow stronger. They would become something the galaxy had never seen before. Lisa showed Jake reports from human colonies across their territory. Food production was already being increased. Mining operations were working around the clock. Human engineers were taking apart alien technology to see how it worked. Without the Council's rules stopping them, they could finally explore ideas that had been forbidden for decades. The Liberty received new orders to patrol the border between human space and Council territory. Jake's job was to make sure no alien ships came too close to human worlds. But he also had a secret mission. He was to watch and learn everything he could about what the aliens were doing. As weeks passed, more reports came in from other human ships. The aliens seemed happy that humans were gone. They acted like a problem had been solved. Council ships moved freely through space without worrying about human interference. Trade between alien worlds increased. Everything looked peaceful from their point of view. But humans were not sitting quietly in their corner of space. Peter Hayes sent word that Project Genesis had reached an important milestone. New types of ships were being built in secret shipyards. These ships used technology that the Council had banned as too dangerous. But humans had figured out how to make it safe and powerful. Jake received a message from Admiral Fletcher. The Admiral told him that humanity would not waste this chance. Being kicked out of the Council was actually a gift. Now they could develop without alien oversight. They could explore new ideas without asking permission. They could become what they were meant to be. Dr. Campbell showed Jake intelligence reports from their spy networks. Humans had friends among some of the smaller alien races. These races had also been treated badly by the Council. They were interested in working with humans in secret. This gave humanity valuable information about what was happening in Council space. The months turned into the first year of isolation. Human colonies not only survived, but began to grow in new ways. Without Council regulations, human scientists made breakthroughs in energy production, space travel, and communications. Human explorers found new worlds that the Council maps said were empty. Human farmers developed crops that could grow in harsh conditions. Jake watched all this happen from the bridge of the Liberty. His ship had been upgraded with new technology that came from the secret research stations. The Liberty was now faster and stronger than any Council ship. but more importantly, it could move through space without being detected by alien sensors. The Rai Council had wanted to teach humans a lesson about following rules. Instead, they had given humanity the greatest gift possible. They had set them free to become something amazing. As Jake looked out at the stars, he knew that the aliens would regret their decision. Humanity was not going to quietly disappear into the darkness of space. They were going to use this time to prepare for something that would change the galaxy forever. The silence that the Council had forced on humanity would not last. When humans spoke again, the whole galaxy would listen. And they would listen with respect, not because they had to, but because humans would have earned their place among the stars through their own strength and cleverness. 5 years had passed since the Council cut off all contact with humanity. The alien leaders thought humans would either collapse or come crawling back asking for forgiveness. They were wrong on both counts. Earth and all human colonies had not just survived the isolation. They had grown stronger in ways that surprised even the humans themselves. Commander Lisa Rodriguez stood in the control room of Frontier Station and looked at reports that would have amazed the old Council. Human explorers had found 17 new worlds that could support human life. These planets were rich with metals, energy sources, and rare materials that the Council had never bothered to look for. The alien maps had marked these areas as empty space, but human scouts knew how to look deeper. The new worlds were already being settled by human families who wanted to start fresh lives away from the crowded inner colonies. These settlers brought new ideas and new ways of solving problems. Without Council rules telling them what they could and could not do, human creativity exploded like fireworks across the frontier. Dr. Kevin Wright worked day and night in his laboratory on Earth. Before the isolation, the Council had banned research into advanced artificial intelligence and robot workers. They said such technology was too dangerous and could lead to problems. But Kevin had spent 5 years proving them wrong. His team had created smart machines that could think and work alongside humans without any danger. These new robots could build entire cities in months instead of years. They could terraform hostile planets and make them suitable for human life. They could explore dangerous areas of space that would kill human crews. The Council had been holding back human progress for decades with their fearful rules. Captain Amanda Foster commanded the first of humanity's new stealth ships. The vessel looked like empty space to any alien sensors that might be watching. Her ship used technology that humans had reverse-engineered from old alien artifacts found on dead worlds. The Council had forbidden such research, calling it grave robbing. But humans saw it as learning from the past to build a better future. Amanda's ship, the Silent Runner, moved through Council space like a ghost. She could observe alien military bases, trade routes, and diplomatic meetings without anyone knowing she was there. What she saw made her reports very interesting reading for human intelligence services. The Council had grown lazy and comfortable. They believed their own propaganda about human weakness. They had reduced their military patrols because they thought the biggest threat to galactic peace was gone. Their trade networks had become predictable and easy to monitor. Their technology had barely advanced in 5 years because they had no competition pushing them to improve. Meanwhile, humanity was advancing at a speed that would have frightened the aliens if they had known about it. Dr. Monica Carter led research teams that had made contact with alien races the Council had forgotten or ignored. These were species that lived on the edges of known space or had been pushed aside by Council politics. The Voidwalkers were mysterious beings that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions humans did not fully understand. They had watched the Council exile humanity with great interest. The Voidwalkers had been treated as myths or legends by most Council races, but humans approached them with respect and curiosity. This led to an exchange of knowledge that benefited both species. The Nexari were an advanced race that had withdrawn from galactic politics centuries ago because they were tired of Council bureaucracy. They lived in hidden systems and had developed technology that made Council science look primitive. When human explorers found them, the Nexari were impressed by human adaptability and invited them to learn from each other. These new friendships gave humanity access to scientific knowledge and technological advances that the Council could not even imagine. Human ships began using Nexari navigation systems that could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. Human colonies started using void walker energy sources that seemed to pull power from empty space itself. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Jackson led scouting missions deep into unexplored space beyond the galactic rim. His job was to map new star systems and look for potential threats or opportunities. What he found changed everything. There was something coming from the dark spaces between galaxies, something that ate entire worlds and left nothing but empty space behind. Steve's reports described massive ships that moved in perfect formation like insects in a hive. These creatures, which humans started calling the Devourers, had already consumed several small civilizations beyond the galaxy's edge. They were heading toward Council space, but they moved slowly and carefully. The aliens had no idea what was coming for them. Human scientists studied Steve's data and developed new ways to track the Devourer movements. Using advanced artificial intelligence and quantum sensors, they could predict where the enemy would strike next. They could see patterns in Devourer behavior that revealed weaknesses and possible strategies for defense. The most important discovery was that the Devourers were not unstoppable. They were powerful and dangerous, but they followed predictable patterns. They had blind spots in their formations. Their hive mind structure had vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Most importantly, they had never faced an enemy that could adapt and change tactics quickly. This was something humans were very good at. While the Council races preferred to fight the same way their ancestors had fought for thousands of years, humans constantly developed new strategies and weapons. The isolation had made this tendency even stronger. Human military leaders now had 5 years of experience thinking outside the old rules. Admiral Roy Fletcher received reports from all these different sources and began to see the big picture. Humanity had been given a gift by the Council's arrogance. They had been forced to become self-reliant, creative, and strong. They had made new friends and discovered new technologies. They had found threats that the Council did not know existed and developed ways to fight those threats. But the most important change was not in human technology or military power. It was in how humans saw themselves. They were no longer the junior members of a galactic community asking for permission to exist. They had become something new and powerful that could stand on equal terms with any alien race. The silence was almost over. Soon the galaxy would hear from humanity again. But when that happened, the conversation would be very different from the old days. 10 years had passed since the Galactic Council banished humanity to the edges of known space. In that time, humans had transformed from desperate outcasts into something the galaxy had never seen before. They moved through space like shadows, watching everything and revealing nothing about their true capabilities. Captain Ryan Bell commanded a fleet of ghost ships that the Council could not detect or track. His vessels used technology so advanced that they seemed to bend space itself around them. The ships appeared as empty space to alien sensors while human crews observed Council activities from impossible distances. Ryan's reports revealed a disturbing truth about the alien government that had exiled them. The Council had grown weak and arrogant during the decade of human silence. They believed their own propaganda about teaching humanity a lesson through isolation. Council leaders assumed humans had either collapsed into primitive tribalism or learned to accept their place as inferior beings. Neither assumption was close to reality. Council military forces had reduced their readiness levels because they no longer feared human unpredictability. Their exploration programs had slowed because they thought they already knew everything worth knowing about their territory. Their research had stagnated because they had no competition pushing them to improve. The aliens had made themselves vulnerable without realizing it. Dr. Monica Carter's research teams had expanded their contact network far beyond what anyone had imagined possible. Working from hidden bases scattered across human space, her scientists communicated with dozens of non-council species that had been ignored or suppressed by the galactic government. These forgotten races had been waiting for someone to offer them a real alternative to council rule. The Voidwalkers shared their understanding of dimensional technology that allowed travel through spaces that normal physics said should not exist. Human engineers combined this knowledge with their own innovations to create transportation systems that could move entire fleets across the galaxy without using the Council's monitored hyperspace routes. The Nexari provided access to manufacturing techniques that could build massive structures in space using nothing but energy and raw particles. Human colonies began constructing orbital platforms and defensive installations that were invisible to conventional sensors, but could support millions of people and vast industrial operations. The Shadowkin were a race of information specialists who had been exiled from Council space centuries ago for refusing to share their intelligence-gathering methods. They taught humans how to infiltrate alien communication networks and monitor private conversations between Council leaders. This gave humanity access to the deepest secrets of galactic politics, but the most important alliance came from an unexpected source. The Keepers were ancient beings who had been observing galactic civilization for millions of years without interfering. They had watched the Council exile humanity with great interest because they recognized something in human nature that reminded them of their own distant past. The Keepers revealed that every successful galactic civilization went through a period of crisis that either destroyed them or transformed them into something greater. They had seen the Council reach this point and choose stagnation over growth. Humanity was now facing the same choice, but the signs suggested they would choose a different path. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Jackson continued his scouting missions beyond the galactic rim, but his reports had become increasingly urgent. The Devourer swarm was moving faster than predicted, and had consumed 3 more civilizations in the past year. Worse, they had learned from each conquest, and were adapting their tactics to overcome different types of resistance. The creatures were not mindless destroyers. They were a hive intelligence that could process information from millions of individual units simultaneously. They had encountered dozens of spacefaring races during their approach to the galaxy, and had developed counters for every type of weapon and defense they had faced. They were becoming more dangerous with each victory. Steve's deep space sensors detected something that chilled him to his core. The Devourers had discovered the galaxy's location and were accelerating their approach. Advanced elements of their swarm would reach the Outer Council territories within 2 years. The main force would arrive 6 months later. The Council had no idea what was coming for them. Human scientists studied the Devourer threat with the help of their new allies. The Voidwalkers provided insight into how the creatures moved through dimensional space. The Nexari shared their knowledge of hive mind communication systems. The Shadowkin revealed methods for disrupting large-scale information networks. Working together, this alliance discovered something that gave them hope. The Devourers had a critical weakness. Their hive intelligence was incredibly powerful, but also inflexible. They could process vast amounts of information and coordinate complex operations, but they could not adapt quickly to completely new situations. They had succeeded against other civilizations because those races fought in predictable patterns. Humans were anything but predictable. 10 years of forced innovation had made them masters of unconventional thinking. They developed new tactics every time they faced a problem. They combined technologies in ways that seemed impossible to alien minds. They could change strategies in the middle of a battle and coordinate those changes across entire fleets within minutes. Dr. Rachel Young led a secret research program that combined human creativity with alien knowledge to develop weapons specifically designed to fight the Devourers. Her team discovered that the creature's hive mind relied on quantum communication links that could be disrupted by certain types of energy fields. Break those links and the individual units became confused and vulnerable. The technology required to generate these disruption fields was complex and dangerous. It combined human understanding of artificial intelligence with Nexari manufacturing techniques and Voidwalker dimensional manipulation. The result was a weapon system that could sever the psychic bonds holding the Devourer swarm together. Admiral Roy Fletcher received all these reports and began planning for something unprecedented in galactic history. Humanity would save the Council that had exiled them, but they would do it on human terms and in a way that would reshape the balance of power throughout known space. The plan was audacious and risky. Human fleets would reveal themselves for the first time in 10 years by engaging the Devourer advance forces before they reached Council space. This would announce to the galaxy that humanity had not only survived their exile, but had grown into a force capable of protecting everyone. But first, the Council would have to ask for help. Fletcher knew the alien leaders well enough to predict they would resist accepting human assistance until they had no other choice. Pride and arrogance would force them to try fighting the Devourers with their own obsolete methods. Only after they failed would they swallow their pride and contact the humans they had dismissed as primitives. Captain Ryan Bell received new orders to position his ghost fleets along the Council's outer borders. When the Devourers arrived, humans would be ready. The galaxy was about to learn that silence did not mean weakness, It meant preparation for something extraordinary. The Great Council chamber on Zephyr Prime erupted in chaos as emergency reports flooded in from the outer territories. Admiral Kextar of the Altarian fleet transmitted his final message before his flagship exploded in a burst of brilliant light. 17 Council worlds had gone silent in the past month. The enemy that consumed everything in its path was no longer a distant rumor, but a terrifying reality bearing down on the heart of galactic civilization. Council Prime Minister Ixthis slammed his fist against the speaking podium as panicked voices filled the chamber. This was the same Zephyrian leader who had orchestrated humanity's exile 10 years ago, with speeches about the danger of aggressive species. Now his own people were screaming for protection from something far worse than humans had ever been. The Centauran representative stood with tears streaming down her face as she read reports from her home system. The Devourer swarm had reached her colonies 3 days ago. Billions of her people had sent desperate pleas for help before their communications went dead. Council rescue fleets found nothing but empty space where thriving worlds had existed for thousands of years. Defense Minister Yixtal of the Corvan Empire tried to maintain order as military reports painted an increasingly hopeless picture. Their most advanced battleships lasted only minutes against Devourer forces. Their planetary defense systems were overwhelmed and consumed within hours. Every strategy they attempted failed, because the enemy adapted faster than the Council could. Change tactics. The creatures moved through space in perfect coordination like cells in a vast organism. They stripped entire planets down to their cores and used the raw materials to build more ships for their fleet. What had started as a large invasion force was growing larger with each victory. Soon it would be unstoppable even if every Council race worked together, but the Council races could not work together. 10 years of comfortable dominance had made them selfish and suspicious of each other. The Altarians blamed the Centaurans for not detecting the threat sooner. The Zephyrians accused the Corvans of hiding military resources instead of sharing them. Old rivalries and petty grudges prevented effective cooperation when unity was the only hope for survival. Prime Minister Ixthis called for emergency sessions day and night as the crisis deepened. Traditional Council strategies were failing completely. Their military doctrine assumed enemies would fight according to established patterns of behavior. The Devourers followed no such patterns. They consumed, adapted, and consumed more without any apparent limit to their appetite or capability. The breaking point came when the Corvan home system fell in less than 6 hours. Defense Minister Yixtal's own family died in the attack despite commanding the most powerful fleet in Council space. His final transmission showed massive organic ships that seemed to eat space itself, while billions of smaller creatures swarmed over planetary surfaces like hungry insects. In desperation, Prime Minister Ixthis proposed something that would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. The Council would send a message toward human space asking for assistance. Most of the surviving representatives argued against this idea. Humans were primitives who had been rightfully exiled for their dangerous tendencies. They probably did not even have a functioning civilization anymore. But as more worlds fell silent and Devourer forces moved closer to the inner systems, pride became a luxury the Council could not afford. The communication was sent with the authority of the Emergency War Powers Act. It traveled across the galaxy toward human territory, carrying a simple message of desperation and hope. The response came faster than anyone expected, and from a direction no one was watching. Admiral Patricia King appeared in Council space commanding a fleet that materialized from what sensors showed as empty vacuum. Her ships were unlike anything in galactic databases. They moved with impossible precision and radiated energy signatures that suggested technology decades ahead of current Council science. Admiral King's transmission reached the Council chamber within hours of her arrival. Her voice was calm and professional as she introduced herself as Commander of the Human Stellar Navy. She acknowledged receipt of the Council's distress call and expressed sympathy for their losses. Then she delivered the message that changed everything. Humanity would deal with the Devourer threat, but not as junior partners begging for readmission to galactic society. They would engage the enemy as equals who deserved respect and recognition for their capabilities. The Council would need to accept fundamental changes in how galactic civilization operated if they wanted human assistance. The terms were simple, but revolutionary. No more exile of entire species for being different from the majority. No more restrictive technology bans that prevented civilizations from defending themselves. No more assumption that one way of thinking was superior to all others. The galaxy's greatest strength was its diversity, not its conformity to ancient traditions. Many council representatives were outraged by these demands. How dare these exiled primitives make conditions for their help? The Zephyrian military commander suggested they could defeat the Devourers without human assistance if they just tried harder. The Altarian trade minister worried about economic disruptions if humans were treated as equals. But Admiral King had brought proof of human capabilities along with her demands. Her fleet intercepted a Devourer scouting force at the edge of Council space and destroyed it completely in less than 10 minutes. The battle recordings showed human ships moving with coordination that seemed almost supernatural. Their weapons cut through Devourer vessels that had been immune to Council attacks. The demonstration continued for 3 days as human forces engaged increasingly large enemy formations. Each battle revealed new aspects of human military capability. Their ships could become invisible to sensors, appear anywhere on the battlefield instantly, and coordinate attacks across vast distances without any apparent communication delays. They fought like a single organism with millions of perfectly coordinated parts. More importantly, the humans showed they understood how to fight the Devourers. They disrupted enemy communication networks and caused the hive creatures to become confused and disorganized. They used weapons that seemed specifically designed to counter Devourer biology and tactics. They had clearly been preparing for this war while the Council remained ignorant of the approaching threat. Prime Minister Ixthus found himself in an impossible position. Accept human terms and admit that the Council had been wrong to exile them, or watch galactic civilization collapse under the Devourer assault. His political career had been built on the belief that other races needed Council guidance to reach their potential. Humanity was proving that the opposite might be true. The decision became easier when reports arrived that the main Devourer fleet had accelerated its approach. The enemy would reach the core Council worlds within weeks instead of months. There was no time for lengthy debates or face-saving compromises. Either the Council accepted human help on human terms, or everyone would die together in the ruins of their pride. The vote was close, but survival instinct overcame political ideology. The Council agreed to Admiral King's conditions by the narrowest possible margin. Humanity would lead the defense against the Devourers, and the galaxy would be restructured to prevent future exiles based on prejudice and fear. As Admiral King prepared her forces for the greatest battle in galactic history, she reflected on the irony of the situation. The Council had tried to teach humanity a lesson about proper behavior. Instead, they had learned that true strength came from embracing differences rather than suppressing them. The galaxy was about to discover what humans could accomplish when they were free to be themselves. The Battle of the Kepler Nebula became the most important space battle in galactic history. Admiral Patricia King positioned her human fleet at the nebula's edge where swirling gas clouds would provide cover for the unconventional tactics she had planned. Behind her stood not just human ships but vessels from every species the Council had ignored or cast aside during their reign of comfortable arrogance. Captain Danny Clark commanded the flagship Freedom as it led the first wave of the attack. His ship moved through space with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large and heavily armed. The Freedom coordinated with dozens of other vessels using artificial intelligence networks that allowed them to think and act as a single entity, while maintaining individual initiative and creativity. The Devourer swarm approached the nebula, like a living wall of destruction. Their ships blocked out the stars themselves as millions of organic vessels moved in perfect formation toward the heart of Council space. They had consumed 17 civilizations during their journey across the galaxy and had grown stronger with each victory. Nothing had been able to slow their advance until now. Dr. Rachel Young watched from the Freedom's science station as her quantum disruption weapons powered up for the first time in actual combat. Years of research using knowledge from humanity's new allies had produced weapons specifically designed to fight hive-mind enemies. The technology combined human innovation with Nexari manufacturing and Voidwalker dimensional science to create something unprecedented in galactic warfare. The battle began when human ships seemed to vanish from Devourer sensors, only to appear in impossible positions throughout the enemy formation. The aliens had never faced an enemy that could coordinate stealth attacks across such vast distances. Their hive intelligence tried to process this new threat, but found no patterns to analyze or counter. Captain Danny Clark's voice echoed across the human fleet as he gave the order to activate the disruption field generators. Waves of quantum energy spread through the Devourer formation like ripples on a pond. The effect was immediate and devastating. Ships that had moved in perfect coordination suddenly began drifting aimlessly as their connection to the hive mind was severed. Individual Devourer vessels tried to maintain formation, but they had never operated independently. For millions of years, they had relied on collective intelligence to make decisions and coordinate actions. Cut off from the hive, they became confused and vulnerable. Human ships moved through their ranks like predators among helpless prey. The battle was not entirely one-sided. The Devourers had consumed advanced civilizations before and had incorporated their technology into the swarm. Some enemy vessels broke free from the disruption fields and launched devastating counterattacks. Human ships took damage and human crews died fighting to protect a galaxy that had exiled them years before. But the tide of battle had turned decisively in favor of the defenders. The Voidwalkers used their dimensional technology to transport disabled Devourer ships into parallel spaces where they could be studied safely. The Nexari deployed their advanced manufacturing systems to repair human vessels almost instantly. The Shadowkin provided real-time intelligence about enemy movements and weaknesses. Admiral Patricia King coordinated this multi-species effort from her command ship while monitoring reports from across the battlefield. Her tactical displays showed the Devourer formation breaking apart as more ships lost contact with the hive mind. What had been an unstoppable force was becoming a scattered collection of individual vessels that could be defeated one by one. The breakthrough came when Dr. Rachel Young's team identified the source of the hive mind signals. Deep within the Devourer formation was a massive command vessel that served as the central brain for the entire swarm. If they could destroy or disable that ship, the remaining enemy forces would become completely helpless. Captain Ryan Bell volunteered to lead a strike force against the command vessel. His ghost ships had the stealth capability needed to penetrate the remaining enemy defenses. The mission was essentially suicide because the command ship was protected by thousands of Guardian vessels, but it was the only way to end the battle, decisively. Ryan's squadron disappeared from all sensors as they approached the heart of the enemy formation. For 30 minutes there was no word from the strike force while the main battle continued around the nebula. Then the massive Devourer command ship suddenly exploded in a flash of light that could be seen across several star systems. The effect on the remaining swarm was immediate and total. Millions of enemy vessels stopped moving and began drifting, helplessly through space. The hive intelligence that had coordinated their actions for eons was gone. The creatures inside the ships were still alive, but they had no collective purpose or ability to function as a military force. Admiral King gave the order to cease fire and begin rescue operations. Human ships moved through the battlefield searching for survivors from both sides. The philosophy that had driven humanity's development during their years of exile extended even to their former enemies. Every life that could be saved would be saved. The victory celebration was brief, because there was important work to be done. The galaxy had been saved, but the political structure that governed it was broken beyond repair. The council system based on conformity and central control had proven inadequate to deal with existential threats. Something new was needed. Admiral Patricia King met with surviving council leaders and representatives from the allied species that had helped win the battle. Together they designed a new form of galactic government that embraced diversity rather than suppressing it. The Galactic Alliance would encourage different approaches to problems rather than demanding uniform solutions. The founding principles were simple but revolutionary. Every species had the right to develop according to its own nature, as long as it did not harm others. Technology would be shared freely to improve everyone's defensive capabilities. Differences in culture and thinking would be celebrated as sources of strength, rather than treated as problems to be solved. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral after 10 years of distinguished service, stood on the bridge of his new ship and looked out at the mixed fleets patrolling what had once been threatened territory. Human vessels worked alongside alien ships in formations that would have been impossible under the old council system. Each species contributed its unique strengths to the common defense. The transformation was not without challenges. Some alien races struggled to abandon centuries of traditional thinking. Some humans had to learn that being free to be themselves did not mean ignoring the needs of others. But the alternative to making this new system work was the return of threats like the Devourers. Dr. Monica Carter established exchange programs that allowed scientists from different species to work together on projects that had been forbidden under Council regulations. The breakthroughs that resulted from combining different approaches to the same problems advanced galactic science by centuries within just a few years. The irony of the situation was not lost on anyone who understood galactic history. The Council had exiled humanity for being too aggressive and unpredictable. Their punishment had forced humans to develop exactly the qualities needed to save galactic civilization from its greatest threat. By trying to suppress human nature, the Council had accidentally created the galaxy's salvation. Admiral Jake Morrison reflected on this as he read reports from across Alliance territory. Former Council worlds were adapting to the new system of government. Former outcasts were finding their places in galactic society. The Devourers who had survived the battle were being studied and slowly integrated into productive roles. The galaxy had learned that true strength came not from forcing everyone to think the same way, but from encouraging different species to contribute their unique perspectives to common challenges. Humanity's greatest gift to galactic civilization was not their military power or advanced technology, but their demonstration that diversity and adaptability were more valuable than conformity and tradition. The silence that had been imposed on humanity was finally over. When they spoke again, the entire galaxy listened with respect. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned to listen to all voices, not just the loudest or most traditional ones. The age of exile based on difference was ending, and a new era of cooperation was beginning.